Hi, it's Dorothy Guining with Scrapbooking Quebec. In this video, I'll be creating a double page layout featuring Stampin' Up's Autumn Toile Suite collection, along with some other tools. Everything I use will be listed below, along with my link to Stampin' Up. If you live in Canada and use the link, I will get a commission. And if you do order from that link, thank you very, very much. This is my first layout process video using my November and December scrappy kit. And for some strange reason, the first one is always the toughest for me. So for that reason, I'm going to be using a design that's tried and true. Borders and a grid. It seems to work for me every time. So without further ado, let's get started. And you're about to see what's on my table. I do have a handful of photos. These are basically all 3x4 and 4x6 that I trimmed down slightly, and then I matted them with very vanilla two-tone cardstock. I will put measurements on the screen later in the process. So I have 2 sheets of very vanilla two-tone cardstock. That's going to be my foundation page. These 3 pattern papers, that's what I've selected from the Autumn Toile collection. I had some other two-tone cardstock there that I showed you, Cajun, Craze, and early Espresso. And that metallic paper, also from the Autumn Toile collection, is called Earthen Toned Metallic Paper. And then I just kind of spread out the rest of this Autumn Toile collection. Super beautiful, but very muted colors. This is one stamp and die set I'm going to be using called Autumn Trees. I also have another one here called Stylish Shapes Dies, and this stamp set, which is called Weekend Adventures. I will be using 2 templates from Simple Stories, and I'll talk about all of those tools and a few others later in the process. The first thing I want to do is kind of select my paper. Basically, my plan here is to make 2 wide borders, one on the left, one on the right, and then create a mat that spans across the 2 pages, and that's where my grids will be placed. So I am looking to create borders that have 3 papers in each border, and I just am looking for the pattern, basically how I'm going to arrange the pattern papers. Now what I have to decide is what color mat am I going to have that spans across the 2 pages. So I have early Espresso there and Cajun Craze, and whatever I decide, it's going to be the other one that I create double mats for my photos with. So I decide it's going to be this early Espresso paper. Right now I have it on the dark side, but in the end I end up using the light side because that two-tone cardstock kind of gives you 2 colors, which is really fun. Now what you see me doing is placing my photos within the grid holes, and I absolutely love it. You obviously do not need these templates to create this layout. I love them because the spacing is perfect every time. It just makes creating a grid really, really quick. So as you can see, I placed my photos, but I do have a few empty spaces, so I will have to fill those in later on. And as you can see, I stopped my camera, I double matted all my photos in Cajun Craze, and now you can see I have my strips of paper. So I am forming a border on each side, and you may notice for the 2 narrow strips, I'm kind of tucking them under. So when I put measurements on the screen, it is for visible paper only. So keep in mind for the 2 narrow strips on each side, I cut them a little bigger and tucked them underneath. I'm also showing you that I cut my mat on both sides, and they are slightly different. The one on the left side is just a wee bit bigger than the one on the right. And again, when I adhere this, I will put the measurements on the screen. Now what I'm going to do is just place my photos. It looks kind of boring now, but once I get all of my embellishing and my double mats and all of that, there will be a lot more color on this page. Now I cut up a few different pattern papers to put in the places where there are no photos, and I decide I'm going to go with that tree print paper in each one of them. I also cut myself some scrap cardstock just to back all of those 3x4 squares of paper just to make them a little bit more substantial because the photos all have 3 layers. And you may have noticed I started inking those papers, and the ink I was using was Pecan Pie from Stampin' Up. I also inked the edges of all the other papers, everything except that brown mat that goes across the middle. So what I did off camera was I did adhere those borders, I adhered the mat, but now what I want to do is adhere the photos on top of the mat. So I'm just kind of playing around with the placement right now, and I decide to go with the 3x4 blocks in paper, 2 of them on the right page, and that makes me have 5 photos, 3x4 on the left page. So what I'm doing right now is I am adhering my template with low tack tape to that mat. So I don't want it to move. And once it's in place, then what I will do is simply fill in those holes with my paper and my photos. Now I'm not pressing down too hard, especially on the areas where I will be embellishing. Namely, that will be around the paper that you see, not the photo. So most of that paper there, I will be adding embellishing, and for the larger photo over on the right page, which you will see a bit later on, I will be having some embellishing coming out from one of those photos, and for that reason, I'm not pressing down too hard because I'm going to want some of those embellishments pop out from underneath the photos. And I wanted to point that out because I am adhering, but I am not pressing down too hard. So I'm going to do the same thing over here on the right. I'm not going to make you watch all of it. What I want to do right now is start creating embellishments. So I have that autumn trees bundle here, and you can see I have stamps and dies. Now I have already stamped out 2 trees with black Memento ink on white cardstock. I'm just showing you the black Memento ink. I also have a handful of Stampin' Blends alcohol markers. So each one of them comes in a light and a dark form. I have Cajun, Craze, Pecan Pie, and Mossy, Meadow. Now I'm pointing out that I stamped on white cardstock and not very vanilla. I am showing you another tree I did, and you may have noticed there's a white edge around it. If I were to leave a white edge, I would have stamped my tree in very vanilla, but I'm going to be using a different technique here where I color in everything and there will be no white edge. So the fact that it's white paper really doesn't make any difference at all. It also makes it a bit brighter when you use the Stampin' Blends on white cardstock as opposed to a colored cardstock. Right now I am die cutting the tree, so I'm using just the base die to cut out the entire tree, but there is a layering piece, and you can see me positioning it on top of the first die cut tree, and what that's going to do is emboss some details into the tree, and it's also going to cut out some details so you can see some of the branches within the tree. Now what I'm going to do is the same thing for this smaller tree, but this one does it a little bit differently when you use the layering piece. So first of all, I am cutting it out, just the base of the tree, the entire tree. Now what I'm going to do is take the layering piece, but the layering piece for the smaller tree is a little bit different. It's basically all of the branches in the tree pop out once you put this die on it. So once again, I'm taping it to the middle. I am going to run it through, and it does make the tree look kind of weird when you take it out. It's almost like there's this big hole in the middle of the tree, and then you have these detailed branches, but you're going to see what I do with that in a minute. Now I'm taking my Stampin' Blend. So I'm going to start by coloring with the dark Pecan Pie, and you see me lifting the tree because there are holes in it. And where there are holes, there are branches. So I'm just kind of lifting it up, using the thicker end of this marker and just coloring in where the branches are. So, and I will do the same thing. I will color in the trunk, and I'm not going to worry about the edges. I'm coloring the entire thing in. It's actually easier than leaving the edges, especially if you stamp a little bit crooked. It doesn't make any difference because you color it completely in. Now for the green, You can see I'm showing you a tree, and I did that with the light and dark Stampin' blends. Basically what I did was I colored in the dark Mossy Meadow all where it was inked in black on the tree, and then I colored over it with a lighter one. Honestly, I didn't like the look of it, so this time all I'm doing is coloring the entire tree except where I colored in that pecan pie. I'm coloring it in the light Mossy Meadow. And the thing is, the stamping that was done in black underneath gives the detail that I need. I'm showing you the two trees side by side, and myself, I prefer the one where I use just one marker. Now I'm going to do the smaller tree. Now for this one, I'm taking the middle part that I die cut out, it's all the branches, and I'm just messily coloring over it in that dark pecan pie. And you can see I have a piece of cardboard underneath. That's just an insert from a past paper pack. I always save them. And I'm just coloring that in really messy, and you're going to see it looks very nice when you lift it up. Now with this tree, which looks weird right now, I am coloring it in with the dark Cajun Craze. Again, right to the edge, super, super easy. And I do color a bit of green at the bottom like it's grass. So that is Mossy Meadow. So the tree looks weird now, but if you pop in the middle part, it's like the branches are brown. It's super beautiful. You will see that better in the still shots at the very end of this video. So now I'm going to tidy all of this up and get out a stamp set and a die set to create my title. And the stamp set and die set I'm going to share with you are absolute workhorses in my scrap room. I have the Weekend Adventure stamp set and the Stylish Shapes dies. I'm going to stamp some wordy bits in Cajun Craze and Early Espresso, and I'm going to be doing the larger wordy bit, which is taking the scenic route in Cajun Craze. The paper I am using is the Very Vanilla two-tone cardstock, and after that I'm going to stamp in smaller words, love this place, and that I will do it in another area a little bit further off in Early Espresso. There, I'm showing it to you right now. This is a stamp set. I've gotten tons of use out of it. There are nice big sentiments, absolutely fabulous for scrapbooking titles. I will tidy up my stamps here and get out my die cutting machine, and now I'm getting out those Stylish Shapes dies. Again, another current product from Stampin' Up, but so incredibly useful. You're going to see basically it's layering banners, circles, and squares, and these are all stitched. So I'm going to take out two circle dies and a banner die, and with the larger wordy bit, taking the scenic route, I'm going to cut that out in the banner die. You're going to see I position it with some of that low tack tape. I really should have taken a bit more time because it moved on me and it went a bit crooked. For the sake of this video, I continued creating this title, but off camera after this, I created myself another one that was just a little bit more pleasing to me, a little bit more straight. Now what I'm going to do is cut out the smaller wordy bit, which is love this place, in a circle. And I've got it positioned towards the bottom of the circle because my plan is to overlap that banner on top of it. So the title will read, Taking the Scenic Route, Love This Place. Now what I'm going to do is cut out another circle, a little bit larger. And this time I'm using the metallic earthen toned paper. Now you may notice I'm changing my cutting plates. When I use metallic paper, I like to use a nice scratch-free cutting plate for the top because that metallic paper, beautiful, but it is very sensitive to scratches on the cutting plate. So I always reserve a nice clean one for metallic paper. As you can see, I am adhering the Very Vanilla circle on top of the metallic paper, and now I'm adding foam adhesive behind the banner. I'm not going to adhere it quite yet. As you can see, I'm getting out a few leaves. I cut out these oak leaves from a retired set called Autumn Leaves, and I did it in Cajun Craze and Mossy Meadow two-tone cardstock. And I also have this irregular woven trim, part of the Autumn Toile Suite. So I cut myself out a little bit. And what I'm going to do here is basically fold that trim in half, kind of spanning it out a bit, and I'm adhering it to that off-white circle with a little glue dot. Basically, where it starts, it's going to be covered up by that banner. Same thing with these 3 oak leaves. I am adhering them all together there, I'm sorry, and I'm going to adhere them on top of that trim, and it's going to be popping out from behind the banner, which is popped up on foam adhesive. And I have an absolute fabulous title. So you can see I took a simple stamp set and really elevated it with that Stylish Shapes die set, which again is a workhorse in my scrap room. So I'm quite thrilled about that. Now what I'm going to do is one more die cutting piece. So I'm getting out that Autumn Trees bundle again, and in it there's like this row, almost like a little border of deer in a field. It's gorgeous. So what I'm going to do is cut that out in that same metallic earthen tone paper. So I'm going to cut that out. You're going to see it doesn't cut out at the bottom, just at the top. So what I end up doing is taking my scissors, just snipping the end, and then I do put it in my trimmer and I just trim it off. I just want a little fine line at the bottom, but I guess you could make that as big as you wanted underneath because it doesn't actually cut out the line underneath. So I'm just going to trim this down. Then what I will do is put all of this away and get out my embellishing and show you everything I'll be playing with. So here you can see I have my layout in front of me all ready to embellish, and I have this little tray full of embellishments. What I'm going to do right now is just get out a piece of plain white paper so you can see it. As you can see, I do have some more of those oak leaves that I cut out. There is a current stamp and die set that has little oak leaves, actually part of the Autumn Toile collection. I will list it below as well. I don't have it, so that's why I dug into my stash. I just showed you that irregular weave trim, and I also had some twine there, and now I'm showing you all of those trees that I created. So you can see for the big ones, I did them in Mossy, Meadow, and Cajun Craze. For one of them, I did it in the light Cajun Craze and the other in a dark one. And I have 3 of those smaller trees as well, all from the Autumn Trees bundle. As you can see, I have my 2 titles there. One that I made on camera that's a little bit crooked. I'm not going to throw it away, but I did make myself another one. So that's the one I'm going to keep. I also did my journaling on the computer, and then I cut it out with a die called Just a Note dies. I use that quite a bit. It is a current product as well from Stampin' Up. It basically is a little notebook die. It's super, super cute. I trimmed mine down a little bit, but I used the die for most of it. I just trimmed off the excess a bit just so that where I place it on the page, you will see the pattern paper, and you will see that later on. I also made myself another circle bit. You can see I have the abbreviation for October. For that, I used a stamp set from Close to My Heart. Once again, I put that metallic earthen tone paper underneath and a bit of that irregular weave trim and some leaves. So I was basically mimicking the title. I showed you, of course, my little deer, and I have a bunch of bling there that I may or may not use later on. So now I'm tossing it all aside, and this is going to come together quickly because all of the heavy lifting has been done. I'm going to start by placing my journaling in the top left, and I know my title's going to go somewhere in the bottom right, and I'll probably put the October abbreviation in the kitty corner. Now what I'm going to do is basically start building clusters in kitty corners, which is something I frequently do when I create an easy double page spread. And I always start with the bigger item. So you can see I've tucked in 2 trees and the title in the bottom right. When I create clusters, I like them to be in different sizes. So for this one, the biggest one's going to be in the bottom right. I put 1 tree in the top left. Now I'm coming in with a smaller tree. So I'm repeating colors here. I have Mossy Meadow and that Cajun Craze, and of course that very vanilla in the cardstock. Now I'm getting out another one of those little trees. So I'm adding a green one to that cluster in the bottom right. So I'm really happy actually with how this looks right now. I'm not quite sure where to put the word October, but I really do like it with those little leaves there and that irregular weave trim. Just kind of playing around with it. I do like it kind of tucked between the two trees. Now, I will want to do something in that block on the bottom row, but I'm going to adhere the two clusters that I've decided upon. I'm really happy with them. There's not actually that many pieces because the pieces are so big, but I really am happy with them. And each one of them is really quite detailed. So as you can see, I'm barely moving them and I'm just picking them out one at a time, adhering them. So the two trees are down, I'm coming in with the smaller tree there, and now I'm coming in with my title. So again, all of that heavy lifting was done because I created them in advance. So now the page comes together super, super quickly. Now I'm going to move to the opposite corner. Kind of do the same thing here. I'm going to start with that tree, which is going to come out from behind the journaling box. You're going to see when I go to adhere the journaling box, that die set, that Just a Note die set, I've used it quite a bit over the past few months. And often what I did was wrap a bit of twine around the journaling box where you see that jagged, torn edge. And that's what I'm thinking of doing now. So I have that twine. One of them is in Old Olive. The other one is in Early Espresso. It is in the September-December 2025 mini catalog, as is most of this stuff. Anyway, I decided to go for it off camera. I tied myself a bow. I adhered that journaling box on top of that 3x4 square pattern paper. But when I go to place my smaller tree, that twine makes it just a little bit too bumpy. And don't forget, the middle of that smaller tree comes out because all of those branches were die cut. So in the end, I ended up removing the twine, and now you see me just adhering the tree on top of it, and it just goes much, much better. I did save that twine. It's a fairly lengthy piece. I can use it on a different project. So now you can see I'm tucking in my smaller circular piece, and I'm really, really happy with that. So now I'm going to have a look at the two pages side by side. Very, very nice. Now I do have that metallic deer that I really want to use. I cut it out. It's so incredibly cute. I tried that big orange tree at the bottom and it was just too big. So now I'm looking for something small. I really love those deer there. So I think I'm going to place them there. At this point, I'm tucking a few of those oak leaves, thinking a little bit of color would be nice there. But in the end, I decide to go with a third small tree. So I'm quite happy with that. I've got those small trees in 3 areas. I have that metallic earthen tone paper in 3 areas. So I'm kind of liking how this is looking. I do have to trim down that little border of deer. So I know that that block measures 3 inches. So that's what I did. And now I'm adhering the tree. It kind of overlaps the block. I did that on purpose. And now I'm adhering that little row of deer at the bottom. And I really, really like how this looks finally. At this point, I'm thinking maybe I could move my title around, but in the end, I put it exactly where I originally did. So basically this is it, my finished layout. Off camera, all I did was add a few pressed flower motif adhesive dots. Those again are in the those are in the annual catalog actually. It is a Stampin' Up product. Anyway, I added 3 of them just on top of that Taking the Scenic Route title, and I added 1 to that circular element with the abbreviation for the month of October. But that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I'd greatly appreciate a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, Scrapbooking Quebec, I would be thrilled if you did. And if you are a subscriber, thank you very, very much. As I mentioned in the intro, everything I used is listed below along with my link to Stampin' Up. If you live in Canada and use the link, I will get a commission. And please know I appreciate that very, very much. Have a great day, and I will see you soon on YouTube. Bye-bye.